and others, many have signed, and you continue to promote that as well. Did you want to speak to that at all?
Yes, we, in February of last year, we initiated what we call the Opportunity Pledge to give individuals in our community, businesses, organizations, the ability to demonstrate their commitment to the principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We are seeing significant economic development in Buffalo. Economists are saying maybe more development than the city has seen in over 45 years. And we want to, as that prosperity is rising in our city, we want to make sure that it reaches all people in our community, all sections of our community, all segments of the population. And to date, we've had over 5,500 individuals like yourself and Assemblywoman Crystal Peoples-Stokes sign that Opportunity Pledge. We've had 225 organizations and companies sign the pledge, which represent over 158,000 people in our community. So that sends an important message to those who are creating employment opportunities, that we want to respect the diversity of the community, we want to be inclusive, and we want to see equity in the opportunity that is rising in our city.
Thank you, Mayor. And one last thing I want to touch on here, because, look, we're talking about the economic renaissance that's taking place, a real, true transformation in the city of Buffalo, making sure everyone has these opportunities and gets a chance to get dual employment, has an opportunity to stay in Buffalo, live, raise their family, and work. And part of that is also the focusing on a lot of the quality of life issues. And I know that with the state's support, and if you could touch on how the state has played a role in some of the peacemaker work and the SNUG work. This is something that has been on the front lines of our conference's agenda, that has a real focus on fighting crime in each and every district across the state, but particularly focused on the urban centers that have fallen on harder times in years past and generations past. And we're trying to get out of that. But to me, and I know to your administration and to my conference, it's important that we make that strategic investment on public safety. Can you speak to that, please?
Well, certainly quality of life is important in communities all across the state of New York, and I know that the members of the legislature have been very active in providing funding to support quality of life enhancements in communities all across the state. In Buffalo, we have focused on being tough on crime as well as being smart on crime. We've added surveillance cameras. We now have over 225 surveillance cameras throughout the city. License plate readers. We have over 200 license plate readers throughout the city. We've modernized our police fleet. We've added technologies to our police vehicles that our police officers carry. But in being smarter on crime, we've worked with programs like SNUG that has been funded through the state legislature to work with youth to take guns out of the hands of people in communities, to educate them about violence prevention. We funded an organization called Peacemakers that works with at-risk youth and young adults that actually does street patrol and has helped us to reduce crime in the city of Buffalo. During my tenure as mayor, we have been able to reduce crime overall by 35% and violent crime by 27%. We've been able to do that in partnership, and we've been able to effectively utilize the resources that we have received from you, our partners in state government, to be able to do that.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks for your testimony, and keep up the great work.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you very much. Crystal Peoples-Stokes.
Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to bring greetings to my mayor and certainly welcome him here in Albany. I suspect you spent a little more time than you expected today. but you're always welcome. You've been around the hill around here a little while, so you know how it goes. Just to add some specificity as it relates to your budget presentation, on the combined public works campus, how do you anticipate that looking? And what sort of outreach have you had to other governments, be it state and or local governments, for their participation in that?
So we anticipate a single unified facility that would house, that would co-locate facilities for public works that are now spread across 6 facilities in the city of Buffalo. Some of the areas where these facilities are located are ripe for investment. And a number of them, we've already had private sector entities express an interest in being able to purchase or bid to purchase the facilities. So we think there could be significant revenue generation there. But we also believe that in co-locating these operations, it would make our various public works activities much more efficient. It would create cost savings. We have begun to have dialogue with some local governments. For example, one of the things that Buffalo has that other local governments don't have with the same level of technology that they utilize private sector entities for is sign making. And all governments have to make street signs and other signs. We found that us doing it, we could provide a significant savings to other local governments and actually beat private sector entities that are providing those services now. So that's one service that we think we could help provide to other governments in our region. We've also begun to have some very preliminary conversations with the New York State Department of Transportation, and we believe with this facility there would be a number of services that we could collaborate on with local governments and potentially even state government.
So any idea or estimate on the amount of savings that could happen for either and or both governments? We have worked through some estimates. We believe that the savings could be significant, potentially into the millions, and even more significant, we believe that the ability to sell these 6 properties that we have certainly would run into the millions of dollars. Well, I'm sure you know there's often talk about consolidating governments, and sometimes it's the way to even think more broadly about that is to consolidate services and the delivery of services. So I really actually like that idea. And I hope that we can be helpful in making it a reality for the city of Buffalo. And I already know you know that I really like the idea of the barn that's near the historic Michigan Street corridor to be used for some other purpose than garbage. It's a huge attraction, a huge tourist destination, and the removal of that barn would do leaps and bounds for that.
Well, you have been a champion of the African American cultural corridor in the city of Buffalo. You've provided significant resources and leadership on that important initiative that is designed not only to protect African American history in our city and region, but also to attract more tourists to our city. We have a public works facility right in the heart of that cultural area where we have plow trucks and garbage trucks and other heavy equipment, as you well know, in and out of there on a daily basis. We would like to remove that, and this Public Works campus would give us the ability to remove that facility from the African American cultural corridor in the city of Buffalo.
Okay, so on the Homeland Security assessment that you had done, was that just on City Hall?
We're talking specifically in terms of the needs of City Hall.
Well, you know what, I'm really pleased to hear that as well, Mr. Mayor. It must be the only city hall left in America where you can just walk in the door, there's no security, there's no one checking to see what you're bringing in there. And I can't even imagine being in that condition in 2016. It's not a good place to put any of our public servants in. So I'm grateful that you're beginning to take a look at that. On the issue of utility services, the cell phone wireless services, have the wireless companies been collecting these resources and not sharing with Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, et cetera, or have they not been collecting them in those areas?
Yeah, the cities that I mentioned are not able to assess that 3% charge on the cellular companies.
Right, but have the companies been collecting them from their constituents?
We believe that fee has been collected.
Okay, well, then I believe that they should reimburse the municipalities like they do in New York City. So I will be happy to work with my colleagues and others to try to make sure that happens for not just Buffalo, but for Rochester, Syracuse, and those other cities that you mentioned as well.
And we can provide you with more specific data on that and how that works.
Thank you, thank you. And one last thing, Mr. Mayor, actually two. One. Does the city of Buffalo anticipate a budget deficit in your upcoming budget?
We are working now to close an anticipated $30 million budget deficit. Again, some of these efficiency measures that we're putting in place will help us to do that, but right now at the outset of the process of closing next year's deficit, we're looking at about $30 million.
Okay, well, I thank you very much for your comments, and be safe traveling home.
Thank you, Assembly Member.
Thank you, Senator. Senator, anyone? Okay.
Oh, sorry, Senator Marcio.
Thank you. Has Buffalo been able to stay under the tax cap?
I'm sorry, Senator, I didn't...
Has Buffalo been able to stay under the tax cap, the 2%?
We have to date stayed under the tax cap, yes.
Congratulations. It's not easy to do.
It's challenging. What
Yes, but
we
you can.
find in being able to stay under the tax cap is as we're seeing new development, new investment in our community, it's been very difficult to realize the benefit of that new investment because of the way the cap is structured. We have shared some ideas and some concerns with the governor's office about that. They have been very receptive to some of the ideas that we have presented. But in a community like ours, and I'm sure you will hear from my colleagues as well, where we are working to stimulate new growth, new development, it is hard because our principal source of revenue is the property tax. It's been hard to generate revenue from the new investments that we're seeing in our city with the way the cap is structured.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Assemblyman McDonald,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and
to close.
good afternoon, Mayor. 10 years into it, you're holding up pretty well.
Thank you,
It's
Senator.
good.
I mean,
I
Assembly
did
Member.
13 years, he did 12, and look what happens to you after you've been there for a while, so keep that in mind. Couple things on your DPW campus, which I think is a great idea, and it sounds like you're trying to move along with the agenda of shared services, and it sounds fantastic, and I think you've put a one-time price tag of $30 million on Phase 1. So that indicates to me that there might be a Phase 2 or Phase 3. I'm just curious what those costs would be.
The total cost that we anticipate for Phase 2 is another $30 million. The whole structure would be about $60 million. And we're hoping that through the sale of those 6 parcels of land and facilities that we would consolidate into one, that we would be able to generate substantial revenues towards building out Phase 2.
Great, that's very smart. And the other question, in regards to the utility services tax loophole with the gross receipts tax that you talked about, do you have an idea what the value would be of that? Do you have any idea? I know it's probably taking a shot in a way.
For the city of Buffalo, we have lost about $2 million as we have seen the revenue from landlines decrease. So with more and more people using cellular phones and not having landlines in their home, we have lost about $2 million of revenue in the city of Buffalo.
Over what period of time?
Per year, over
Per year?
how long?
Probably about 5 years. Every year it's gone down a little bit more.
Yeah, over a 5-year period.
And that also speaks to another issue that doesn't, I don't think directly affects Buffalo, but maybe it does, with the 911 surcharge, which has always been so much for land, a little bit less for the cell phones, and we've seen this variation change. And the reality is most of the challenges for investment for the 911 centers are to deal with the next generation, with the texting, the whole 9 yards. So it's all money at the end of the day, and obviously we're all competing for it, but it's important that we try to make sure that the residents have every opportunity to help support your services that you provide. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Yes, I do have one final question, Mayor. And I know you know the Southern Tier very well, and you know Cattaraugus County. And located in Cattaraugus County is the former J.N. Adam Developmental Center site, 35 miles south of Buffalo. And I believe you also are aware of the 20-year-plus problem that we've had with the site. The history on it is that it originally was started as a tuberculosis hospital in the early 1900s, was actually donated to the city of Buffalo, and the city has basically kind of given up ownership but has reversionary rights to the property. And so this is an ongoing issue. The state has control of it. And it's been a real problem because of vandalism and, you know, the lack of economic development on the site, the lack of tax base on the site. The town of Perrysburg has been waiting and waiting and waiting for a resolution on this, and we've been trying to help with passing legislation for a study on what to do with the property. But as you know, the city of Buffalo still maintains the right to sign off on anything done with the land. And I'm just asking for your help to get a resolution to this. We've been working with the governor's office on this, been working with the state assembly on this, but also I need your help, you as the leader of the city of Buffalo, to come to a final positive outcome on it. And I didn't know if you have any comments on the situation.
Yes, Senator, we're you know, aware of the challenge that facility presents in Cattaraugus County, and certainly deeply concerned about that. You know, as a municipality that has had vacant, blighted, decaying structures, we certainly don't want to see that for any other community in this state. We have been successful in removing a lot of such structures in the city of Buffalo. During my tenure, we have demolished over 6,000 vacant, unsalvageable structures, and I don't know what necessarily the plan would be for the facility, but as you indicated, the city does, while it has been transferred to the control of the state some time ago, the city does maintain reversionary rights to the site. We would certainly give up those rights. We have had conversations with the state about it. I can report to you that as recently as about a week ago, I think my law department was in discussion with a state agency that was talking about potentially securing or getting us to sign off on that reversionary right at some cost, which we certainly would be willing to do.
That would be great to finally have that resolved. So I would ask that we continue to work together on this, if you could keep me informed about it, because it does have such a strong impact on my community and the people who live there, and it's been such a terrible problem for so many years. And it's good to hear that there is some progress regarding the issue. So look forward to working with you in the future.
We certainly will keep you informed of what we're hearing and what we're doing with respect to that, Senator. I know that it's a real frustration to the people that live in that community. We certainly don't want to see that continue, and anything that we can do in Buffalo to try to help address that and expedite that, we certainly will do.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And folks, I apologize. I was negligent. I did not introduce my Commissioner of Finance, Donna Estrich, and just want to thank her for the work that she does with us every day to help manage the finances of the city of Buffalo. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Mayor. The Honorable Kathy M. Sheehan, Mayor, City of Albany. Yeah, but that's because
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. You've heard about being late. We've set the record here.
That's okay. I just have to come across the street.
Yes, you're the lucky
I feel
one.
for my fellow mayors who came from further away. So if you would like me to begin, I want to thank you for inviting me here today, Chairwoman Young and Chairman Farrell, members of the Assembly and the Senate. I want to thank our Senator Breslin and Assembly members McDonald and Fahey, who I have worked with over the last 2 years on many of the challenges and great opportunities that we have here in the Capital Region. And, you know, we are a regional center. We are a center for government and for healthcare and for education, but we are also a city with diverse neighborhoods and with many of the challenges and opportunities that all of our cities face and that we share in common and that we have had the opportunity to discuss with mayors and one another, because with what you heard today from Mayor Brown and from the other mayors, I think we are doing extraordinary things within our cities to make sure that we are being fiscally responsible and that we are serving the needs of our residents. And the city of Albany has some wonderful treasures. It is home to historic homes, to museums. We have a rich Dutch heritage. We have wonderful traditions here in the city of Albany. And even though, as the governor said in his State of the State, that upstate New York must remain an economic priority, and he talked about the fact that upstate has been shortchanged for many years, I think that what we have been able to do in the city of Albany is quite remarkable with the resources that have been made available to us. And we are very grateful that the governor has, in this budget, created a fund that is focused on reducing poverty. And Albany is going to be fortunate as being identified as a city to receive those funds, but it's also a list that you don't necessarily want to be on, to be identified as one of the poorest cities in upstate New York. Under that program, the city will receive funding so that we can look at anti-poverty efforts that are working in our city and in other cities and make sure that we are focused in Albany on workforce development, which is one of our biggest challenges for people being able to access jobs that are available here in the region. There are other proposals in the budget with respect to upstate water infrastructure funds, funding for the Thruway Authority, roads and bridges, and broadband. I'm pleased to say that we started last year looking at a broadband initiative in the city of Albany because we have heard from businesses that have been looking to locate here and from developers who are developing downtown residential that this is a real challenge. And so we need to make sure that we have access, that we have high speed, and that we are bridging the digital divide, because it's important that particularly when you look at the need for broadband and the reliance that we have on internet, that this is right along with any other utility, is something that needs to be affordable and accessible to all of our residents. So we are well on a path to coming up with a really great plan for how we can spend these dollars wisely so that we can provide high-speed internet in the city of Albany. But we also have significant challenges. In September, we were identified as a city in significant fiscal distress. We are the only city in upstate New York that is on that list, and we are one of only 2 cities in the state that meet the criteria for significant fiscal distress. We opened our books when I became mayor in January of 2014. One of the first things that we did was submit our books to the Financial Restructuring Board. We opened ourselves up to that process. We went through and reviewed with representatives on the restructuring board the challenges that we were facing. And as a result of that, for 2015, we were able to receive some gap funding to close our budget gap. We started planning for our 2016 budget year. We're on a calendar budget. We started planning for that almost immediately, and again, worked very closely with the state and the state budget office to review the challenges that we were facing, knowing that we were entering that with a gap because of the one-time funding that closed the budget gap that we had in 2015. Our 2015 and 16 budgets capped costs. We capped growth at under the 2% target that the governor has set. In 2015, we stayed within the property tax cap, and our 2016 budget proposes no tax increase. And that is because our residents pay by far the highest tax rates in the region, and our tax rates are uncompetitive. We cannot tax our way to a balanced budget. It would cause, I think, further challenges for economic development and growth in our city. So we have been able, even though we have had a deficit budget in Albany since at least 2007, we've been able, through a patchwork of spin-ups and other one-time funding streams, to maintain solvency, but we have reached the end of that solvency. We, in our 2016 budget that was passed by our Common Council, are relying on an additional $12.5 million that we would need to obtain from the state in order to close that budget gap. The state, as many of you know, owns more than 30% of the property in the city of Albany, and more than 60% of the property in the city of Albany is not taxable. So the result of that is that people who own, homeowners who own 25% of the value of the property in the city of Albany pay 60% of the tax levy. And commercial business owners who own just 13% of the value of taxable property in the city of Albany pay 40% of the property tax levy. And I've included in your materials a map that shows just how much non-taxable property we have in the city of Albany. And when you look at this map, and this darker gray is also property that is exempt from taxation, you can see very visually the challenge that we face in raising revenue. Our property tax levy is the largest source of revenue for the city of Albany. Sales tax is shared county-wide. So the sales tax that is raised in the city of Albany is shared county-wide in Albany County. So the only source of revenue, tax revenue, that we control and that we directly receive is our property tax levy. And as I said, Albany is not competitive with our immediately adjacent suburbs. So when you look at the actual tax bill, a resident in the city of Albany, factoring in school taxes, is paying about 20 to 30% higher than the surrounding suburbs. And a commercial business in the city of Albany is paying $49 per thousand, and we are at full assessed value in the city of Albany. So when we look at that challenge, again, to increase taxes in order to close our budget gap, I think we would continue to have a challenge in attracting residents to our city and businesses to the city of Albany. I know that Many people, when they come to this region, and one of the things that I'm really focused on is to think of ourselves as a region and act as a region, but many people compliment me on how wonderful Colony Center is, or Crossgates Mall, or what a great stay they had at a hotel out on Wolf Road, and I thank them, and then I tell them that I'll pass those comments along to Paula Mahan, who's the town supervisor in Colony, or the town supervisor in Guilderland, because none of those places are located within the city of Albany. We are landlocked, and we have significant challenges in growing our tax base. But that said, we are growing our tax base, and we've seen a tremendous amount of investment in our downtown. By the end of 2016, we will have 450 new units of housing, market rate housing, in our newest neighborhood of downtown. We are working rapidly to redevelop our warehouse district, and we recently passed a zoning overlay so that we can move quickly and entice businesses to come into and invest in our warehouse district. And we also have been talking to the state. The state is still considering potentially allowing some private development on the Harriman campus site, which again would give us an opportunity to grow our tax base. But the challenge for Albany is one of parity, and we receive $128 per capita in AIM, less than Schenectady, less than Troy, less than Utica, and far less than other larger upstate cities. And so that has been the biggest challenge in looking at our ability to put together a balanced budget. When you look at the property tax levy in the city of Albany, the levy in actual dollars, both city and school, is higher than the levy in actual dollars in cities that are significantly larger than Albany, not per capita, in actual dollars. So we have a gap. It's $12.5 million. When I came here in 2014, I said it was $12.5 million. In 2015, the state was able to provide us with $10 million, and we used $2 million, the last $2 million of our reserves. And I come to you again today saying it's $12.5 million. And that's in light of the fact, and notwithstanding the fact, that we have continued to cut significant costs from our budget. Our costs of running city government are rising much more quickly than this. Our health insurance costs alone were targeted to go up 9.4% this year. But even with those increases, we've been able to implement cost-saving measures, make decisions about streamlining city government, work with the county and work with other governments so that we can drive cost efficiencies. But this structural gap that exists, again, is about $12.5 million. It's what we would receive if we received the same AIM per capita as the city of Utica. So if we were to try to raise that $12.5 million by increasing our property tax levy, we're looking at a 20% property tax increase for our residents, a 22% tax increase for our homeowners. We have, as I said, held spending to less than 2% in each budget since I took office in 2014. We have gone through the Financial Restructuring Board, which acknowledged that the city of Albany has a revenue problem. We have instituted not only cuts, but new fees, and those fees, while not popular, are measures that we need to put in place so that we can continue to provide services to our residents. We need to grow our tax base, and I believe that we are making the right decisions and the right investments to do that. But we also need state funding that recognizes the unique and compelling position that we have as the capital of New York State. We recognize that being home to state government and hospitals and universities means that we're a center for jobs. The challenge for the city of Albany is that we don't have a municipal income tax. We don't have any way of generating a tax base from those people, most of whom are coming into the city to work. Our city about doubles in population every day. So residents are choosing to live right outside the city and commute into the city, and they're not walking into buildings that are paying us property taxes. So that is the challenge. But we are getting there. We've seen a complete facelift of our Wellington Row at the top of State Street. I think many of you have had the opportunity to walk across the street and see the new Renaissance Hotel, which is a spectacular new addition to the city. We've worked really closely with that hotel to ensure that the people who are getting jobs there are residents in the city of Albany. One of the things that we've done over the last 2 years is I think we've been successful in helping the business community to focus on the fact that we need to provide jobs for our residents, and they are responding. And the Capitol Center is under construction and will be completed, and we are undertaking a number of initiatives so that we can really capture the economic value of that by having new businesses start in Albany, by ensuring that entrepreneurs and that residents in the city of Albany understand the opportunities that are available because of that. So, as I said, the challenge is AIM. One of the proposals that we have made with respect to the $12.5 million is that given our unique status as the capital city, that we could amend Section 19A of the Public Lands Law to provide for additional aid to the city of Albany so that we can build a bridge to the future that we have in front of us, which I do believe is a bright future. And we are open to other mechanisms for delivering this additional aid to the city of Albany, but we do believe that when the city receives less than 0.5% as the payment that we receive for all of the state land in the city of Albany, that 19A is a mechanism for delivering this aid to a city that is proud to be your state capital and is proud of the services that we provide and the infrastructure that we provide, but that is in need of finally closing this structural gap so that we can move forward and have a bridge to a more permanent solution.